Greetings to all. This is Truth is Out, and I'm Chris Dorr, historian and writer. We have a very important guest with us today called Karen Melton Stewart. She was a former NSA agent, and she's a gang-stalking victim exposing these illegal practices against innocent civilians. Hi, Catherine. Thank you for being
Hello,
on my YouTube channel. How are you?
I'm as well as can be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend. First of all, Karen, I would like you to tell us a little bit about your background and why you became a gang stalking victim.
Okay. Um, I applied to work at the National Security Agency in 1982, and I was hired as an intelligence analyst, not an agent, but an intelligence analyst. And that pretty much means that I did research and wrote reports. So I was just sitting at a desk. I wasn't going out different places. Um, I wrote top secret reports, classified reports, and sent them to the Pentagon, the military, various federal agencies. It just was like being a top secret reporter. That's all it was. Later in my career, I ended up doing a 6-month series of top secret reports that garnered all kinds of compliments. And I was told by the Pentagon and by upper NSA management that they think my reports had saved 2,000 lives or more. And I was very pleased with that. It's always nice to be a help to your fellow man. Um, but later, I found out that my big boss, somebody who was 2 or 3 people over me, decided that my reports would be a wonderful way to get his girlfriend promoted. So he took her name and put them on my reports and took mine off, and she got a double promotion. And I, of course, was just told that my work wasn't considered good enough to be promoted for it. And it took me a couple years to find out about the deceit. When I did, I tried to ask the Inspector General at the National Security Agency to investigate. And it turns out that the woman who got my promotion had actually been sleeping with several of the managers. And it looks like it was on purpose to blackmail them for some foreign entity. Well, the Inspector General seems to have been working for that entity as well. And what NSA did was that they refused to investigate. Then they sent low-level security thugs, is what I call them, to stalk and harass me. And they expected me to complain about being followed and stalked so that they could call me paranoid and fire me. But I just ignored them for about 3 years. And what they did was that they ended up increasing the level of harassment. They killed my dog, my family dog, and they were basically stalking and harassing me as I drove. And that was very dangerous. So I finally ended up complaining. And when I did that, they did fire me. So I knew their pattern of harassment. I ended up suing them, which they did not like. And for several years, from 2009 to 2015, they did not overtly stalk and harass me, but I'm sure they kept an eye on me because I sued them. Well, in 2015, my lawyer basically asked the judge who was sitting on our case at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission for a subpoena so that we could corroborate the identification of a very high manager at NSA who was he was caught burglarizing my house. He had gone into the house to put bugs into it, and my husband and I saw him leave. And I spent several months investigating, trying to find out who he was, and identified him as being an SES manager, which is about the highest type of manager you can find. And he was an electronics and computer expert. So he had gone into the house to bug it, not to see if I was doing something wrong, but to see how much I knew about what they were doing wrong. So the NSA got very upset that I had found out who he was. And I had moved from Maryland to Florida. And so NSA decided to go ahead and start a brand new stalking harassment campaign against me. in Florida. And so they started that in early 2015. And I found out through investigation that that NSA basically went to the fusion center. And now in the States, we have fusion centers in every state, and sometimes there are 2, 3, or more fusion centers. And those were created by the FBI right after 9/11, because our leadership decided that the upper echelon federal agents and people were not talking to the lower level law enforcement, which was baloney. That was not true, but they decided that was the whole problem with 9/11. And so they started creating fusion centers in every state where there are federal representatives essentially telling the local law enforcement people what to do. So NSA went to the fusion center in Tallahassee, Florida, and spread lies about me and said that I needed to be watched, which means I needed to be harassed, is what they were doing. So all through 2015, I had civilian mercenaries stalking and harassing me. And when they couldn't scare me away from the lawsuit, then they started paying people to hit me with directed energy weapons, just like those that were used to attack our American diplomats in Cuba and China. And I've been under assault ever since late 2015, when I actually told Bill Black Jr. That I knew 9/11 was an inside job. And that upset him because he knew he was involved in the murder of almost 3,000 Americans, and consequently, the murder of almost 1 million Iraqis when we went into their country on false pretenses. So it looks to me like he's the one who ordered that I be slow kill murdered with the electronic devices that they're using on me now. And they are using on probably about 2 million Americans. But the FBI has exported this insane program to the entire world. And so there are people in every single country who have been picked out to be false villains that their law enforcement will attack for money. They're being paid for as many people as they can attack. And so this is a money-making scheme all over the world, thanks to our FBI and our traders within the United States, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you for your explanation. It was a very good explanation. And could you describe what is Gangstalking exactly and the main powers and agencies behind it, although you just mentioned some of them?
Yes, when somebody is targeted, and it could be for any reason, and it could be for no reason. It could be because they're a whistleblower like I was, or it could be just that they need people to attack, a number of people, because the more people the fusion centers put on the terrorist watch list, the more money they get. So they really don't care what the person does. It could be a mother of 4, it could be a bus driver, it could be a dog trainer. It doesn't matter, So all they want are bodies, because this is human trafficking. Now, the first thing they do when they target someone is that they figure out a way to get a GPS chip in them, and that could be through a vaccination. It could be that they break into the person's home, knock them out through either frequencies or gases, knock them out and inject them with a GPS tracker so they know where the person is every minute of every day. And it also helps for them to aim the directed energy weapons at them if they're using directed energy weapons. They might be using gases and poisons. That's another method that they are testing for the war theater. But they put the GPS tracker, and then a lot of the time, if not all the time, it would appear that they put one chip behind each ear and one chip in the nasal cavity so that they may focus the directed energy weapons on the person's brain, because they would love to have that person immobilized and made into a vegetable so they can experiment on them further in hospitals. And that allows for a lot of abuse. Another thing they try to do is somehow get you into the hospital to have nanoparticles injected into you, because when you get the nanoparticles injected into you, again, you're easier to find. But if you're having the electronic weapons being turned on you, then these nanoparticles pick up the directed energy weapons energy, and they reflect it inside your body so that you hurt much more, and it does much more damage than somebody who does not have nano inside them. So it is a means to increase the torture and increase the lethality of the directed energy weapons, because they want to hit you with a level that is low enough that the people around you don't necessarily feel it, though sometimes they do, but they want it to be strong enough to eventually kill you. So that is a precursor to put all of this garbage inside your body. The second thing they do is they will pay people to stalk and harass you. And it's a very highly coordinated method. It's very militaristic, very precise. They essentially go to people that they've already recruited or to your neighbors, and they tell them some vicious lie about you, to say maybe you killed your grandmother, but nobody can prove it. So they need social justice to bring you down and make you pay for some crime that you actually never committed. A lot of these lies will be that you're a pedophile. Somehow you've lived next door to all these neighbors and they've never noticed that you're a pedophile, because you're not. So, but they will tell people that you are, and again, that you need to be punished, but the law just can't quite do it. So it's up to them to punish you, meaning to destroy you. So they have all these people that follow you by foot and they follow you by car. And there are certain things they do to let you know that they're part of the group, innocuous things that aren't necessarily criminal. But let's say all the people following you decide to wear a blue baseball cap. You know, that's not against the law, but it tells you how many people are involved. But you can't really go to the police and say a lot of people with blue baseball caps are following me, because they'll think you're nuts. Well, this entire first program where they have people stalk and harass you is to worry people, intimidate people, make them go to the police and report being stalked and harassed by multiple people that they don't know. And the police are told to interpret that as the person having mental illness. So what they do first and foremost is get you to discredit yourself. And I tell people, don't report anything to the police unless there is physical evidence of vandalism or physical evidence that you can show them, because you can't say all these people are following me around, because you just sound crazy. So that's the second thing they do. And once they have discredited you with the police, then they start in on the gases, poisons, or directed energy weapons that really do harm you. And they also go to a lot of doctors and medical people and tell them that you're a terrible person. And if you come in and you have an x-ray or something that shows damage, that they are to hide it and to give you an x-ray that shows no damage whatsoever, that isn't even your x-ray. So they go in and they bully and bribe medical people, and we think that they bully and bribe the upper echelon of the police. And they basically are intimidating people in your neighborhood to either help them out or to shut up about what they see. So it is a vast program, and it reminds me of people living in Nazi Germany who realized things were out of control, but they felt they couldn't do anything about it. So that's the situation that we find ourselves in when we get people to believe us. Then many of them are absolutely too scared to help because they don't want it to happen to them.
And the main agencies behind it, who are them?
I would say in the United States, the chain of command is the Department of Homeland Security, then the FBI, who create and run the fusion centers, then the fusion centers, and the mercenaries they hire. Now, at the fusion centers, you can have representatives from every single federal agency. You can have people from the IRS. You can have people from the FBI, obviously. You can have people from CIA, NSA. Anybody can send a representative there. And so the entire government, if it wants to be, can be involved. And I would imagine the setup is exactly the same in every other country that the FBI has gone to and set these centers up for that country, or advise them how to set up their own centers that do this to their own people. So it's a massive effort. It is a huge matrix of people who are able to have input into the system. And I would say also that there are contractors who can have representatives there. And what the contractors do essentially is say, oh, we have this new weapon and we want to test it out on 100 people in your area. We need you to throw 100 people on the terrorist watch list so that we can declare them terrorists. Then we can declare them to have no constitutional rights, no civil rights, no human rights, but we declare this secretly, and we will not tell them that we are declaring them to be terrorists, and we will just go ahead and hit them with these weapons. And since the law in the United States says that we can kill terrorists when we find them, then it doesn't matter how we kill them. We can experiment on them for months or years and have them die from the experimentation, and it's still legal, is what they say. Of course, it is an absolute total corruption of law, but this is their secret interpretation so that they tell themselves they have a right to do this to us.
You have talked about direct energy weapons. It's very common and you suffer from them. Can you describe these weapons? What type of weapons exist and how are they used?
There is a multiplicity of energy weapons. Now, if you look up Nikola Tesla, who lived in the late 18th century and into the 1900s, 19th century into the 1900s, he invented all kinds of energy weapons. If you even take sound and you basically put a lot of power behind that sound and you increase that sound to a very, very, very high pitch, you can actually burn people with sound, and it's sound that you won't necessarily hear. It has been proven to stop the ability of animals and people to breathe. It can cause respiratory failure. And so you can actually hit people with this type of emanation and kill them from afar and have nobody around them know what has happened to them. So it has become a favorite of intelligence communities in order to assassinate people they find inconvenient. And they can use microwave. They can, I mean, a lot of this is electromagnetic energy. And you just look at the spectrum of electromagnetic energy and you'll see all kinds of frequencies, all kinds of different effects. They've studied frequencies to the point that they can hit somebody with a frequency in their house, have them not even know that they're being hit, and induce suicide. They can induce suicidal feelings. They can hit a crowd of people that is just peacefully protesting, and they can induce them to become absolutely enraged, and the people won't even have any idea why. Well, why would they do that? To discredit whatever the people are protesting. Let's say the people are protesting an invasion that was not right, or a government policy that was criminal or unfair. And in order to discredit them, they will turn a frequency on the protesters to make them violent. And they'll say, see, we don't even have to pay attention to these people because they're crazy. And of course, they love to discredit anybody, everybody as being crazy. It's a throwback to the Soviet Union. It's a throwback to communism, where all the dissidents were basically called crazy and put in mental institutions instead of prisons, because they essentially did the same thing. They took the person off the street and they shut them up.
The active denial system is one of these weapons, isn't it?
It is, and there are a lot of weapons that are called non-lethal weapons that are given to police, and they are used supposedly to break up a crowd of people that the police think might get out of hand. Well, again, they are burning and hurting people, and there are people in a crowd that these weapons will kill. They call them non-lethal, but they were never designed to be non-lethal. And I have that from an expert in the field who, his name is Paul David Galbotz, and he was a security person who oversaw the testing of these weapons. And he was telling me that he was working at a particular Army base where the people would go out and either take dogs from the shelter or they would steal them out of people's backyards. to bring to the base to test these weapons on. And then early, before people started to come to work in the morning, they would take the bodies of the animals out and dispose of them. So I found that horrendously despicable to begin with. But he was saying that he knew for a fact that all the military people knew these weapons were never intended to be non-lethal. And they are giving them out to the police and having the police use them on civilians. Well, the police are also helping to assassinate, because if you take some of these weapons and you hold them on a person's house through the night when they're sleeping, let's say from midnight to 6 in the morning, you can kill them. And what the reason they do that when they're sleeping is they don't want the person to know that they are being assaulted and that they are in trouble, because these weapons can speed up your heart rate to like 170, 180, 190 and kill you. And it's going to look to the coroner like you just died of a heart attack. So these are covert assassinations of inconvenient people. I know one woman who is being attacked like this because her police chief came on to her, wanted to have sex with her, and she said no. So he had her targeted. Clearly, she's not a terrorist, and she is not the only person, innocent person, who's been targeted by petty and evil people with access to these weapons.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's horrible.
It's horrible, yes. You are in a group called Techno Crime Fighters with Catherine Horton and Ramola Darmayar. Can you tell us a little bit about this group and what its main purpose is?
The group was formed with Millicent Black to do video podcasts about these crimes, and it ceased to exist about 1.5 years ago. But we put out about 1.5 years worth of videos, so those are still available on the internet.
Yeah, I have watched some of them. They are very interesting. Okay, finally, Karen, I would like you to give our viewers a few advices about how to protect themselves from these gang-stalking practices, and especially the direct energy weapons, if there is a way to stop them, and what they can do about them.
Well, with the gang stalking, I've told people to try to ignore it as much as possible. Now, part of the gang stalking is slander and libel campaigns that are very hard to fight, but you do have to speak up. And I've basically, when I was being stalked and harassed by civilians, I walked up to them and I pretended I didn't know that they were stalking and harassing me. And of course, they had no idea what to do, but I would walk up to them and say, hey, what do you think about the Fusion Center? What did I call it? A scandal. And they would look at me funny and say, yeah, the fusion centers apparently are throwing a lot of innocent people on the terrorist watch list just to make money, and they haven't done a darn thing wrong. And and believe it or not, they're hiring stupid civilians to run around and stalk and harass them for money. I said, can you imagine doing that to your neighbor with no proof whatsoever they've done anything wrong? I said, that's totally unconstitutional and illegal. And I said, those people are in big trouble, because they will end up going to jail, because this whole program is illegal. And then I'd wish them a good day and walk away. Some of the gang stalkers, if they would stalk me in a store or something, I would turn around and stalk them back. They would get nervous, go out to their cars to leave, and I would get their tag numbers. So there are things that you can do, and I would collect photographs of tag numbers and write down what incident had precipitated you getting that tag number. Write down and collect evidence. Now, you can't take it to the police, but you can later take it to government authorities when this entire scheme is shown to be illegal and criminal. I would say collect your evidence now, and guard it so that it's not stolen out of your home. As far as the directed energy weapons, that is a very difficult thing to guard against. But I will tell you, some of the materials that I've found that will help are on the smaller scale. They are Teflon pans actually will reflect some of these energy weapons, especially the copper infused ones, and copper sheets very shiny copper sheets reflect a lot of these weapons. Mirrors will reflect some, especially the better mirrors with the silver. There is a place on the internet called lessemf.com that sells silver infused clothing and hats, which does help. And other things, I would say that there's mylar, sheets of mylar or window tinting that are heat resistant and or reflective. I've even used some of that in my car. I took apart my car and sprayed the interior, not meaning where you sit, but between the metal on the outside and the interior of car. I have sprayed with something called grill paint, which is something that you spray on a grill that you use outside to cook food on. It is heat resistant. So I've done that. I've also put copper inside the car because they will hit you. They usually will take some of these devices and either put them in a trunk so that they can drive in front of you and hit you with it, or they will attach it to the engine and hit you with it as they tailgate you. And of course, the bigger the engine, the more powerful the device. So you do need something in the back of your car if you are a victim. Something like the copper. There is something also called polycarbonate. That's a panel that you can buy at a home improvement store. The carbon in it absorbs heat. So what you're looking for in any type of shielding is something that reflects and or absorbs heat. So let's see, there's something else called a grill sheet, which is something you put on an outdoor grill that absorbs heat up to 500 degrees. And you would put, say, vegetables on the sheet so they don't fall between the grill and into the fire. So those can also be bought. What else? I would say that also, if you're familiar with silicone, they make oven mitts from silicone. Silicone also absorbs heat. So if you can find a oven mitt that's not shaped like a hand, but maybe an oval one, you could put that inside your clothing to protect you from some of this garbage that are hitting us with. And there is also EMF resistant paint, which is expensive. But if you can paint the interior of your house with it, that would help you a lot. And then put window tinting, reflective heat absorbent window tinting on your windows. I've put it on the entire wall, but it's you do whatever you feel like you need to do. But those are some tips. Another unusual tip would be that they do make a dog bed that has cool gel that is cool to the touch for the dog. Well, that also will slow down some of these emanations and it will protect you. So I actually sleep on top of a cool gel dog bed and have a cool gel dog bed over me. And it's just basically a mat with the cool gel in between. And I think the best brand is Chills, Chillz, that you could probably find on the internet. So those are some tips for mitigating the heat that these weapons generate, and all of them generate heat that will eventually kill you. They can fry your skin, they can burn your skin, but they can also fry your organs, which will not show immediately, but it can cause necrosis, and necrosis can cause sepsis. So it is very important that you guard yourself as well as possible from these electromagnetic weapons.
And what about aluminium?
Aluminum is probably the first thing people reach for. It is somewhat porous. So if you're going to use aluminum, then you need to use 7 to 12 sheets at once, because it is too porous to use just one or two. And that'll do until you can find some better material if you use multiple layers.
Well, thank you so much, Karen, for all your information, and thank you for being in the program. I hope I can have you in another time and we can keep it talking about the gang stalking.
Anytime, I'm happy to help. Right now in the United States, the Protect America Act, which is a problem and which has created this entire problem, is being revoted. And we are trying to contact our representatives and tell them, no, this is a bad program. Do not renew it, cancel it. So we are fighting.
That's good. That's what we have to do. Each one of us in our own way, but we have to fight. Okay, thank you so much, Karen, and have a nice day.
Thank you. You too. God bless.
Bye.
Goodbye.